Welcome to History Obscured. We have another episode where we're going to be touching on the same topic, alright, in regards to the Willie Lynch letter. Now, last week we touched on the method as to what Willie Lynch was teaching the slave masters in the South as to how to keep their slaves in check. Now, one of the key things that we have to remember is one of the main factors to control slaves was to cause a divide, mainly on envy and distrust and fear. Alright, these were the three elements that were used to make sure that the slaves were kept in check, or better yet, control. Alright, now it goes deeper because Willie Lynch had specific procedures given to the slave masters to equip them so they understood how to control the minds of the slaves. Now, mind you, Willie Lynch wasn't new to this. This was something that he was used to doing, and he actually saw the results of his plantation in the West Indies. Alright, based on the slaves that were on the plantation there. The same method that he taught the slave masters in the South, alright, he was just using that same method that already worked out for him. So it's not like he didn't know what he was doing. He already saw the positive results that he was getting from applying it on his own plantation. Now, again, it goes deeper because there's much more to Willie Lynch's method or plan to keep the slaves in subjection. Alright? And the focus point is going to be on the black woman. Alright? And how he created a way to reverse the roles of the man and the woman. Alright? And this was all contributing to make sure that the economy of white people continue to thrive. Alright? I remember we spoke about what he was trying to mitigate, alright, to keep the slaves in check. Because remember, there was a lot of uprisings, there was a lot of rebellions, because the slaves knew that they were being oppressed. So what we have to understand is Willie Lynch came in to solve that problem, alright, and that was to the demise of the slaves. Okay, and we also have to remember that his method was, or the vision of the method that he gave to the slave masters, was a hope that it would be perpetual if it was executed in the right way. Okay, so we have to understand that this wasn't a short-term plan. This was for the long term. We're talking about generations after generation. And when we look at the black community today and the mind state of the black community, it correlates with the plan that Willie Lynch put in place from years ago. Alright, now the still gonna stay on the same book, The Making of a Slave by Willie Lynch. We're gonna go to page 29 and I'm just gonna read a few things, alright, from page 29 and onwards. So the title of this chapter is called The Breaking Process of the African Woman. Alright, so we're just going to read a few things here. So it says, take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. So already the black woman was a target. Alright, they had to make sure that they broke the black woman first in order for good economics to be established within the various communities of the whites. Alright, but he's going to show you how he did it. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract that last bit of bitch out of her. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so, you spoil good economics. When in complete submission, she will train her offsprings in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. So that was the tool that they would use in order to keep her offspring in check. You understand? It was breaking the woman so she could submit to the will of her master and teach that to her children. All right. Now, let me see. Understanding is the best thing. Therefore, we shall go deeper into this area of the subject matter concerning what we have produced here in this breaking process of the female nigger. We have reversed the relationship in her natural uncivilized state. She would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male, and she would have a limited protective tendency toward her independent male offspring and would raise male offsprings to be dependent like her. Alright? Nature had provided for this type of balance. We reverse nature by burning and pulling a civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence. Alright? Now, this is one of the methods, alright, within the whole vision that Willie Lynch had in order to control the slaves, was by destroying the male image in front of her, by emasculating him. The way they would do that was use a bullwhip, alright, and as an instrument to afflict him, or to punish him, or to burn him alive. And this was to destroy the female slave psychologically, so she lost the dependence on the black male as her protector. All right. Now remember, everything that we read in this letter, it still reflects on what we see today. All right. That's where you get that independent woman. I can do good all by myself. It all comes from somewhere, and we're reading it right here. Because the male image, which was represented to protect her from harm, he's now moved out of the way, because he's now being emasculated in front of her. So psychologically, she doesn't even see that black male as her protector. Alright? By her being left alone unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. You see that? So what is the role of a male? A male is supposed to be a protector, a provider, a strong man, confident provider, taking care of his family. What Willie Lynch is saying here is that, no, we're going to reverse that. Meaning what? How are we going to reverse that? We're going to gender switch, meaning the male are going to be like females, and the females are going to be like males. And hence why you've got a lot of weak men today in society. All right? Men that are easily emotional, men that don't know how to lead. And I can relate to that because I came from a single parent household. And many of my friends around my area, in my school, they went through the same thing. And we were very emotional, and it didn't make sense. But according to this letter and the plan that Willie Lynch put in place, it shows you the reason as to why we come up with that mind state. And remember, the plan was to make sure that his vision for the control of the mind of the slave was to be perpetual. You understand? Meaning that when you look at what Willie Lynch put in place in order to control the slaves, you're still seeing the effects of that today. It shows you how deep it is, and it also shows you that his plan was successful. Alright? That's the deepness of it. Now it says, in this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. For fear of the young man's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent while physically strong. Alright? So although you see a lot of black men that are physically strong, mentally they're not able to hold things down like a man should. You understand? That's the reason why you see a lot of men, again, it goes back to the emotions. A lot of weak men simp for the woman. Alright? They don't know how to lead or have the confidence to override a woman when she tries to take authority over him. Why? Because he's mentally weak but physically strong. You understand? And that goes into being effeminate as well. Why? Because that male was probably raised by his mother, and his mother's not going to teach him how to be a man. Alright? She's going to teach him how to be a woman, because a woman can't teach no man how to be a man. Only a man can do that. Alright? Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offsprings to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You've got the nigger woman out front, and the nigger man behind and scared. This is perfect. This is a perfect situation of sound sleep and economics. Why is that? Because if a black man doesn't know how to lead, right, and a woman lead, first of all, that's already bringing destruction to the nation, because men are supposed to lead the nation. Men are supposed to take the initiative to bring order and structure to a nation. All right? That's their role. But if they have been conditioned to think like females, they're not going to take that step or be in a role where they can stand up and be men. Why? Because they've been taught how to be women. Well, on the other hand, women are playing the man's role. You understand? For instance, you have many women that have children and there's no man in the house. They play that man's role. So if she has sons, she's teaching her sons to be effeminate. And I'm not saying it's done on purpose. She may just be doing the best that she knows how because of her situation. Alright? By the end of the day, those boys don't have a male figure. They're going to end up doing effeminate things, and they're going to have effeminate attributes. And a lot of the time, when you look at these young boys that come from single parent homes, a lot of them look or search for that role model. And 9 times out of 10, it's either going to be 2 out of these options that I'm going to mention. It's either going to be the drug dealer that's got all the money and the fancy cars in their local neighborhood that they adore, and he probably has come from the same background with no father. Alright? That's the reason why he's out on the streets being a menace and doing all sorts of wickedness, because he hasn't been given the discipline from a man on how to move. Or he's going to look to become an athlete and kick a ball all day and night. Become an entertainer. No sense of leadership, no sense of manly attributes, just be an athlete, kick a ball around and get paid for it. And get paid loads of money for it. Those are the only ambitions that most young black males aspire to be, because there's no men within the community that show themselves manly. Or not, and let me not say that. There's not enough. Alright? The negative outweighs the positive. And that's the problem. Because men in this society, the black man specifically, has been taught to be weak. And you're reading it here. Alright? You're reading it here. So it's deep. I'm just going to read more here on page 31. So it says, before the breaking process, we had to be alertly on guard at all times. Why? Because the men would stand up and rise against the oppressor. They were men. Men are supposed to be fierce. Like I mentioned, they're supposed to stand on business, as they say. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of the frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. Meaning that he no more has that courageous spirit to go and fight against the slave master, or to rebel, or cause an insurrection. He's now hiding behind his mother. He has a fearful spirit. This is the psychological, destructive method that Willie Lynch put in place to keep the slaves in check, and it still plays a heavy part in the destruction of the black man today. Alright? He is a good tool, now ready to be tied to the horse at a tender age. By the time a nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken in and ready for a long life of sound and efficient work and the reproduction of a unit of good labor force. Why? Because he has been conditioned to submit to his slave master without fending for himself or creating something for himself. There's always a sense of dependency. Alright? Continually through the breaking of uncivilized savage nigger, by throwing the nigger female savage into frozen psychological state of independence, by killing off the protective male image, and by creating a submissive dependent mind of the nigger male slave, we have created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever. Meaning this is going to continuously be a thing where the men are going to be scared, fearful, and run behind the woman, and the woman is going to be the one to take the lead. All right, and this goes into many different things. You understand? Goes into leading a household, goes into knowing how to take care of a household, goes into controlling emotions, goes into all sorts. All right, but showing you the effect. The crazy thing about it is everything that we read in this letter concerning Willie Lynch's plan came to pass. All right, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the male and female slaves. We show what we mean by example. All right, take the case of two economic slave units and examine them closely. So what he was saying there is that the only way that this cycle can be broken is if a phenomenon happens, meaning something out of the ordinary comes into play and breaks the cycle. All right. And you know what that phenomenon is? That phenomenon, all right, amongst ourselves is knowing how to love one another, knowing how to treat one another, having morals, having principles, all right, changing the way that we think and living in a righteous manner. That's how we break the curse of Willie Lynch. And that's what Willie Lynch is saying. That is the phenomenon. Am I saying it right? Phenomenon. All right, yeah, that's how you say it. But that's what he's talking about. You break the curse. Because remember, what we read last week was what? The only way that the Willie Lynch plan can work is if what? The slaves have a fearful spirit towards their slave masters. They are distrustful towards one another. All right, and they are envious of one another. If those three factors are compounded and executed perfectly, then this plan will work with ease. And that's the problem within the black community today. There's too much division, there's envy, there's hatred, there's all sorts of wickedness that takes place among us. And our oppressors don't have to do much to keep us in check anymore. Before, they would have to chain us up and discipline us, but now we're so destroyed that we just do everything on impulse to the point where like, oh, that's a good nigga. That's a good boy. That's a good slave. That's the way they're thinking. That's the way they view us. But again, like I said, that phenomenon is coming together, loving one another, changing our mindset, living righteously, and doing the right thing, and having high moral standards. All the evils that we see in society amongst the black race, we have to stop that. Examples of what? Young black males shouldn't be killing each other. There's ways on how to deal with matters. Some situations are not worth killing over. All right? And there's always a way on how you can fix that. All right? Building families, learning the principles of marriage, learning how to take care of your community, not selling drugs, You understand? To make money, earning a decent living. These are the different factors that will make us better and will destroy that curse of Willie Lynch. But again, it just goes into the deepness of how serious this thing is and how serious Willie Lynch was in completing his mission to establish his vision. Alright, so I'm going to leave it there for the Willie Lynch letter. Alright, so again, the topic was the breaking process of the African woman. Alright, so I hope that you learned something today, and I hope that you can digest that. Alright, so this is History Obscured. Be sure you log in for our next episode. Alright, that's it. Peace.